I do believe we are now live on Facebook. And welcome, everybody. Greetings and welcome to Visionary Parenting, where we are sowing the seeds of success within us, within our children, so that we are transforming a generation to believe that they can be, do, and have anything that they desire. Now, we are having powerful conversations with a variety of parenting experts, thought leaders, and parents who are taking the journey and empowering themselves and their children so that they can grow, learn, and live successful, abundant lives as defined by them. And we are now on episode 4. And today, my amazing guest is BeAta Tina Fuller. Now, you have seen her before. She is my co-host for this, and she has popped up and saved me many times during the show. But today, it is her time to speak about all of the wonderful work that she has been doing, that she does. Now, she is an educator, I would say a child development expert, but you use a different name. So you can tell me that, because I can never get my mouth around the name for some reason. I can't say it. So I'm going to leave you to say that for me. And a homeschooler, has homeschooled her children who are virtually adults now. So she has got so much wisdom, value, and insight to share. So I am so excited for this conversation. So welcome, BeAta.
Hi, Melanie. It's so good to be here, and so exciting to be here in a planned way where I'm actually meant to.
It's brilliant, brilliant.
I've loved working with you and collaborating with you, and it's just, I feel like it's so exciting to be meeting all these people that have the same vision. Now, for so long, I thought I was alone, and with the wonder of Zoom.
Yeah.
It's just been so
totally
amazing
agree.
to meet people.
I totally agree with you, and I have to say that there's not many things that people would thank COVID for, and COVID-19 and all that we're going through. But what it's allowed us to do is connect online. This is how we first became connected, is online, connecting with other parents and educators in the work that we're doing. So you're there in Australia, I'm here in Jamaica, but I'm originally from UK. It's allowed us to connect in such a way which we probably wouldn't have done, maybe not in this way at this moment. So, there are pluses to this horrible time period that we're living in. There has been some very good pluses, and meeting you, for me, is one of them, and meeting all of these other parenting experts is one of them. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you do. So to begin, let's explain to our audience, what was your journey into teaching or education, and how long have you been doing it? Just give us a bit of a background to you.
How long have we got? When I was 3.
This is where it starts from. It's where it starts. Absolutely. It's where it starts. And tell me that story.
Well, I learned to read when I was really young. Apparently my babysitter, when I was 4, I just noticed that I was interested in it. And my mum picked me up one day and I could read, right? So I was really aware that I picked up the pattern of how it worked. And I remember sitting there, this little 4-year-old, on my babysitter's lounge, and just having this aha moment and going, oh, that's how reading works. And from that moment, I could read. It was like, I just went, oh, that's how it works. It's easy, right? And so then from then on, I went on to, I realized that there was something that I had that teachers didn't, that I somehow knew how to explain things to kids in a way that teachers didn't. So I wondered about that. As a little 5 or 6-year-old, I was thinking, why don't they know this? Like, they're the adults. How come I can explain it to my friends and they can't? So that's how it started, right?
Wow.
And went on from there. So I had this interest in working out how learning actually happens. And that's where it started. I was also really passionate about well, I could see that things came easily to me, but they didn't to the other kids, to some of my friends. But I was really aware at a really young age that it didn't mean I was smarter than them. So the teachers would say in class that I was the smart one. Okay. But I was really aware that I wasn't, that my friends had a lot of things that I didn't know how to do. So that's where it started. When I was really young, I had this awareness that there was something in the education system that was missing. And then, of course, I went on to home educate my own children and organized homeschooling activities for other kids, and it just kind of flowed on from there. But I was
that's a big jump. Okay, so you've gone from being aware that you learned things differently, and that you had a curiosity about how people learn. You saw the difference between how you learned and how your classmates and so forth learned, and you developed that interest. Okay, and then you've gone to homeschooling your children. But what happened in between that? Because remember, I said that you was I described you a child development expert, but you use a different name. What is that name? What was that?
Yes,
I can't get my mouth around it.
Yeah, behavioral. I'm just going to move my camera across so I can look at you. I worked as a behavioral optometrist, or a developmental optometrist.
That's it. Optometrist. That's it. Yeah. Optometrist. And see, I can never remember how to say that, so that's why I got stuck. So explain how you got into that. Is that again from the fact that you was aware that you learned things differently and could explain it in a different way?
Not at all.
Okay, see?
Not at all.
Tell me that journey. So,
I finished high school. I got really good grades, and my parents, being parents, thought that I should go and do medicine because I had really good grades, and I wasn't interested. I did 6 months, and I went, it's not my thing. And one day I got home, and my younger brother, who was 14 at the time, and at 14, boys don't talk. I don't know, you've got a girl, but boys at 14 don't talk.
Nephews.
My younger brother probably hadn't really spoken to me other than little grunts for like, a year or so. And I remember walking up the stairs and my brother saying, "Why don't you try optometry?" And that was probably the only thing he'd said to me that year. And there was an optometrist down the road. So I went, okay, I'll go and check out what it's about. And he was a behavioral optometrist.
Okay. Can you explain what an optometrist is?
Yeah, so an optometrist traditionally is a person who tests people's eyes and prescribes glasses, right? However, this guy was doing it differently. So what a behavioral optometrist does is they work with visual perception. So how we take information in, process it in our brain, and then what happens, how that information comes out. So he was working with children with learning difficulties. So I walked into this place.
That's a whole different concept, isn't it?
Totally. It wasn't about eyesight. It was about vision, in the concept of how do we use what we see and how do we process what we see. So I walked into this guy's practice and went, yep, that's what I'm doing. Enrolled in the course the following year and did that for 20 years. Now, what happened was that because optometry is a profession that's traditionally about prescribing glasses, there were limitations to what I could do within the confines of that profession. So eventually, although I was still working in that field while I was homeschooling my kids, a few years ago, I decided that what I was actually doing when children were coming to see me was I was counseling their parents on how to raise thriving kids, and what I was doing with the children was moving further and further away from optometry to the point where I could no longer justify calling myself an optometrist and claiming the Medicare in Australia, it's covered by Medicare. I could no longer justify claiming the Medicare rebate. So I broke away and began to work with parents, because that's the other thing I noticed, was that when I was working with children, I realized that it's actually what's going on for the parents that flows onto the kids. Right. So, and it was so true in my personal homeschooling journey. I noticed that when I shifted, when I grew, my children just immediately followed, and it was effortless. So that's where my passion is bringing that effortlessness into learning, into growing, thriving kids, because it really It really is effortless, and I've proven it to myself time and time again. I've worked with hundreds, thousands of kids. I've seen hundreds of children go through the homeschooling journey in many different ways. And because I love watching people, you know, I'm one of those people that will sit in a cafe and just observe and see, you know, see the dynamic. I realize that when we work with nature, when we work with natural principles, it just happens naturally. Like, and you know that kids naturally have it in them. And I think the word education is even about that. It means to draw out. It's not about teaching and inputting information. It's about drawing out, nurturing, and mentoring what's already in there in a way that's natural for that particular child. So that's where my passion is.
Yeah. And so that's how that led you into, from all of that, led you into homeschooling. Did your kids never go into main school at all, or?
They did. They went to school for 3-4 years. One of my sons got up to year 3, the other one got up to year 4. And they were very different. I always wanted to homeschool because, you see, when I was working as an optometrist, you know, I saw lots and lots of clients. And some of those clients, some of those kids were really switched on. They were really together. And so I'd always, as an observer of nature and explorer, I'd always ask to the parents, now, what is it that you do? What is it that you do differently? And 8 out of 10 of them said, we homeschool. And I went, how interesting. They either homeschooled or they grew up on a farm. They seemed to be the two major things that raised kids that were really switched on and together, not necessarily academically, but really, you know, they could hold a conversation. You could see that when they came into my room, they looked around and they went, I know how that projector works. I know that the lights go, you know, just, you know, that kind of mind where you can see that person switched on. And what that meant to me, what I got out of it was that obviously these are the kids that get opportunities to explore life.
Yeah.
So if they've grown up on a farm or in the country, or if they've homeschooled, they've had opportunities to explore life from different angles. And they can put the pieces together in a way that creates something, and then they become creators in life, and they can thrive in any environment, right? They're adaptable. Yeah,
that is so true. Homeschooling tends to, or home education, whichever term that you like to call it, but it kind of breaks the children away from rituals and structure and routines that a school might do, and also just gives more open opportunity, like you said, to explore learning, to explore in different ways, to, you know, to lead their learning, to be in charge of where it is that they're going, you know, to follow their flow. And it's nice when you're able to do that. So, but many parents will say, well, you know, you were fortunate to be able to homeschool. I'm not in a position to homeschool. So if those parents are not in a position to homeschool or home educate, what could they do to then help this process of exploring learning?
Well,
you know, because, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, a heap, because I've met lots of children. So even though 8 out of 10 of the really switched on ones were in this group, there were also many that were switched on that were at school. And the difference there was the parents. So what parents can do is allow that exploration. That's what it is. Because what I often find is parents get fearful, and this is where it all begins. You know, when we begin from a place of fear, from that place of, what if I'm going to fail my child? What if my child doesn't succeed? What do I need to do to get my kids to get the good grades? Because that's what we've been conditioned to believe.
Yeah.
That as long as our children get the good grades, they're going to go far in life. But it's totally untrue, right? It's the creative mind. So allowing that exploration, moving the focus away from the schoolwork, and really tuning in. Every parent, especially mums, knows their child. We know, we can feel our children. we can feel their genius. You know, you're a parent, you know that there's certain things that we look at our kids and go, wow, they're just brilliant at that. It's just natural.
Yeah.
So it's about allowing them to explore that, even if it seems like it's in the most weird ways. Because what happens is, one of the things that I teach is that humans naturally seek out experiences that promote their growth and development. We just do that. And sometimes, especially in younger kids, when they haven't been, when that hasn't been suppressed, when that instinct hasn't yet been suppressed, the experiences they seek out can seem really weird. They can seem really odd. You know, for example, they know how to write the number 3, but they'll start writing it back to front, upside down, back, you know, in all different ways. And the parent's instinct is to go, oh, no, that's not how you do this. Now, the important thing is to allow it, because they're exploring, they're learning what that figure or that number looks like from different directions. So it's like that multifaceted learning. So that's a really basic example, but it's true for everything. You know, they might be learning something at school, and then they start to explore it in all different ways. And it's that looking at things from all different angles, and sometimes maybe saying something that's a bit weird or a bit out there, or observing something that's out there, or trying something that's a bit out there. It's what we need to allow. So that would be my answer, to allow that exploration, no matter what it looks like to us as adults with our conditioned and primed brains. It's that exploration that leads to learning.
Absolutely. So giving them opportunities as well to do that, you know, and creating those opportunities. It's sometimes we have to proactively create those opportunities for our children to explore these different possibilities that could be there for them. You know, I think it's so important that we open up our children to the world of possibilities, and so allowing them to explore where it is that they want to go. That is amazing.
Yes. And I want to say one thing on that creating the opportunities, you know, it can sometimes, most of the mums that I work with have a bit of guilt about things that they haven't been able to provide for their kids. So most mums have this list of, oh, this is what I would love to provide for my kids. And normally with life, we can probably only do about this much of that list, right? So it's not about having to create opportunities. It's about stepping back, observing what our kids are doing, and maybe just coming in with that 1 or 2 things that we can see might promote that or might support them in it. So there's really, it is about effortlessness. It's about observing.
That's a big difference, isn't it? That's a big difference. That's a real big difference perspective on creating or observing and just bringing in those little bits that you're talking about. And I can see how that would make that effortless as well. Now, the title of our show today was Parenting Made Easy. Now, I know for a fact that there are many parents out there that would say parenting is never easy. What are you talking about? How can you possibly say that parenting is easy? You know, it's far from that. It's always a challenge. It's always a learning curve. And there is where's the easiness? So I know for a fact that we're going to have parents that say that. So can you explain what you mean when you say parenting made easy, or what that actually looks like?
Well, it's about knowing what the 20% is that we actually have to put in. That creates, you know, the 20-80 rule, right? So there's 20% of effort that creates the 80% of results in everything. And that's in business, in marketing, in everything, right? It's a universal law. So it's about working with nature, because in nature, that tiny little tweak, providing those foundations right at the start. And by right at the start, it doesn't mean they have to happen in the first 5 years of life. Ideally, they do, but they don't always. You know, life happens. But providing the foundations of what helps a person thrive in life just means that the rest grows out of that naturally. So that's one aspect of it, is knowing what the foundations are and just focusing on that, forgetting everything else, because everything else will just flow out naturally. And the second part is fun, right? Because you say that parenting is a challenge. Who says that a challenge is a bad thing? Like, we all love, I mean, look at online games. Aren't they a challenge? But look at how many people choose to spend money and a lot of time taking that challenge. So seeing it as fun, I'd wake up in the morning and go, I wonder what my kids are going to come up with today. I wonder, you know, and when kids do things like misbehave, you know, we call it misbehavior. And then there's all the other labels like this disorder or this deficit. You know, we have such negative language around all these things that are just part of life. So I like to throw that out. And I'm not saying that it's bad to have labels, because I've met some adults who say that, gee, I wish I'd known that there was such a thing as ADD, you know, because I have it. So it would have been. So I'm not saying throw out the labels, but I'm saying the negative connotation of it. And just each morning, wake up, look at it as an adventure. It's like a treasure hunt, going, okay, I've got this clue, and when I've solved this clue, then I'll get the next clue. You really don't know what's going to happen. And I remember saying when I was quite young, before I had kids, I said, the thing about raising kids is that you don't know the effects of your actions until about 10 years later. And you don't. So you might as well forget about it, right? And just have fun with it.
That's so true. That's so true. And whilst you were speaking, you reminded me of a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't remember it in its exactness, but it was Wayne Dyer, and he says that your world changes when you change the way that you look at it, or things change when you change the way that you look at it. So what you're saying there is what I picked up from what you were saying there, is that in the terms of parenting, that if we just look at parenting as being an adventure, as being fun, as being joyful, and not looking at it as in, this is hard work, this is, oh my gosh, this is stressful, this is strain, I don't know what I'm doing, and all of those things. So if we change our perception on what it is and on how it is, then we can get into that more easier mode, or that flow mode of parenting, and enjoying the journey more when we change how we look at it. Is that, do you think, am I picking up on what you're saying there?
Totally. And exactly. And if you look at it this way, okay, say you wake up in the morning and you know you've got to have a conversation with somebody, and you're expecting that you're going to get resistance. You're expecting that they're not going to like what you're going to say, and that it's going to be difficult. Okay, so imagine that scenario. And then imagine a scenario that you wake up in the morning, you know you're going to have a conversation with somebody, and it's going to be great fun. How do you go into it?
Yeah, completely different.
We create it by the expectation. We create the response, because when we're fearful, when we're going, I don't know what I'm doing, and my kids aren't going to listen to me, and I need to ask them to do this chore, and I know they're not going to want to do it. If we go in with that expectation, we say it in a way, the kids feel our energy. Right? We're all energy. So when we go in with that expectation, we immediately say it in a way that makes them resist it.
Yeah, absolutely.
While if we come in with a different expectation, you know, my boys are now, as you say, almost grown up, but you know, as they were going through their teenage years, housework, house chores were not high on their priority list, right? So I had fun with it. I'd say things like, now, would you like to do your wash up tonight, or would you like to do the whole family's wash up tomorrow? You know, and it just turned, and I'd say it with a smile on my face, and then they'd go, oh yeah, all right, I'll do it tonight. You know, it's just that obvious answer. And I'd say it in a way where it was clear that there was no other option. Like, they were the two options, right? But it wasn't said in a oh, you haven't done your wash up again kind of way. It was said in a way where I normalized the behavior. So again, working with nature, I would say to them, look, I know you're 13. And I know this isn't high on your priority list, you know. However, it still needs to be done. So let's work together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same when they were going through those times when they, and I'll use the word, where they hated me, right? And it's not that they hated me in their heart, but because of their hormones, there were times when I would say something and their body would just go, oh, you know, and you get the eye rolling and stuff. And the important thing was to not make it mean anything about me.
Yeah. To recognize the phase that they were going through and the processes that they were going through, and it's not about us, and it's about what they're going through in that sense. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
it's the same with younger kids, you know, when they're going through stuff. If we don't take those emotions on, then we're not coming from a place of fear. We're coming from a place of love, and just knowing that our kids are going through what they need to go through, and they're on their journey, and then we can support them. And then, of course, because we're in a good space, a lot less of that happens.
Yes.
So my sons have never talked back to me. And I don't know if I just got lucky, but, or maybe it is because I've always come from this place of, you know, whatever you're going through, it's normal, it's natural.
Yeah.
So they've never felt that pressure from me. So they haven't felt the need to push back.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I don't think there's many parents that can say that their kids have never pushed back in that kind of way, you know, in that sense, because I think kids are always looking for they push the boundaries, you know, in that sense, and that's part of their learning, of pushing the boundaries and knowing how far they can go and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's really an amazing journey there. And you reminded me of things that I always teach as well, as part of actually my stress release that I do for the students and thing. And it's about setting your intentions, which is exactly what you were saying about setting your intention about. And often we set our intention about what it is that we want to accomplish, you know, the task. And we forget about setting our intention about how we want to feel whilst doing that task. And that makes us such a huge difference, you know, because when we set our intention about how we want to feel, we raise our energy and our vibration, and we bring that into the task or into the meeting or into whatever it is. So the energy level is different. So as you say, you know, you don't meet that resistance because you're coming from a higher vibration and less likely to attract the things that is going to cause that resistance during that meeting. So, you know, setting your intentions, segment intending as well for parts of the day makes a massive difference. And doing that with your children, you know, setting your intentions about how you want to be, how you want to act, how you want to respond to your children, the type of parent I'd say that you want to be. And that's what we would call, I guess, some would call it conscious parenting, being aware.
Yes, there's lots of different terms for it, but it's about that awareness. And also, you know, you spoke about setting the intention with your children, and that's another thing that I often find, because parents become, especially mums, dads are not so much in that space, but often mums become fearful of what they're not providing. So the goals that they set are based on society standards. They're not based on their kids. So the parents have goals for their kids, the teachers have goals for their kids, the neighbors and grandma and uncles have goals for their kids. What about the kids' goals? You know, so setting intentions with the children, and it doesn't mean that we let them drive the bus, but making sure that there's a little bit of them in there, because one of basic human needs is agency or control.
Of course.
Right? So if we give them an option, or if we say, this is what we'd like to achieve, but why don't you find your way to get there? Then
and it's also
they get that feeling.
And it also teaches them about consent, you know, them giving their consent to do things. And I think it's very important to teach our children from a very young age about consent, that they say it's okay for this to happen, or this to, or that to happen, and so on. And so when you begin to teach that from, and that's by giving them choices, you know, would you like to do this or that? Would you like to go here or there? And those kind of things, you know, and giving that consent, and not saying, right, well, this is what you're doing, this is where we're going, and you have no say or choice in it. Teaching them about consent where possible. Now, we know as parents that, you know, sometimes we do have to take that control and go where we do what we need to do, but introducing them to the concept of giving their consent, making them feel valid as a human being, that their voices, their opinions, their rights are being listened to and are important, gives them that wholeness of, you know, these are little adults, they're little human beings. They have the same feelings, go through the same emotions that we go through as adults. They experience that as child. They're little human beings. So we should appreciate that and deal with them as such, and allow and encourage that, that growth, that independence, that awareness of what feels right for them and what's not.
Yeah, and the learning, the amount of learning in that, because they're learning to tune into themselves then. So when we give them those options, then they have to check in.
Exactly.
You know, and that's the one thing that I found. I remember speaking with she actually approached me, a university professor, and we were doing markets. We used to make food and sell it at markets with my kids while they were homeschooling. And there was a university professor who used to have a pecan nut farm. Do they have pecans? And yeah. And so she was doing these markets as well. And she came up to me and said, "What are you doing with your kids?" Because they're saying that they were preteen at the time. You know, so she actually approached me and said, what is it that they're doing? So I said, we homeschool. And she said, that makes sense. She said that what happens when kids get to university is if they've been at school and they haven't had those choices, they come to uni and they're looking for someone to tell them what to do all the time. They don't have that ability to make their own decisions because they've never been allowed to.
Yeah.
So it is, you know, it's not that homeschooling is the be all and end all, but it's just about bringing those things that homeschooling that naturally happen during homeschooling.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in school.
Exactly. But if we can make it happen at home, yes, kids spend a lot of the day at school, but they also spend a lot of the day in the home. So it's about not outsourcing the child raising. You know, some parents are so tired at the end of the workday that they go, okay, kids have been at school, that's been taken care of, and it's all about just the chores and the lists. And what I really want to get across to parents is tune into what's important. You know, if you have a vision for your life of where you'd love to be in 5 years, 10 years, where you would love for your kids to be in 5 or 10 years, if you look at that, is this thing that you're focusing on right now actually going to be a step towards it? And if it's not, throw it out and play a game with your kids.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, I shared a post on I think it was yesterday in preparation for, and I knew it was the perfect one for you. Yeah, and I'm just trying to find it a thingy, because that's exactly what you're talking about. That's exactly what it is that you're saying. I'm just trying to quickly find it if I can. Oh, please, why would it do that? Right. So what it was actually Albert Einstein. Yeah. And the picture was, it says, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. You know, meaning, and this is just so you when it comes to parenting. You are getting the parents to envision the life that they want, to use their imagination to think about what it is that they want to create for themselves and their children, and not to rely on the rational mind, the taste, touch, see, hear, what's currently in their reality, but create the vision and strive for the vision of what it is that they want to bring into their parenting and their children, and I think that is just so awesome, the way that you describe and say, right, really tune into yourself. What do you want? What do you want for you as a parent? What do you want for your children? And begin to craft that journey. It's beautiful. Love it.
Yeah, it's exactly it. And that's what I found in my life. That whenever I followed my intuition, things just flow, and there's really very little effort, because it's the analogy of the river. It's going to get to the ocean. So yes, you do need some banks, you do need the boundaries, you do need some direction. Otherwise, you're just floating and you don't even know if you go around in circles. So that vision is what gives you the direction. And knowing those foundations that we do need to give our kids is what creates the banks. So our kids are looking for us to be the banks of the river, and but they want to be able to flow within it. And sometimes it's a wild river, sometimes it's a calm little pool. And the thing is that there can be rocks, there can be logs in the river, but it just flows over it, right?
It's beautiful.
It's not a problem. It's not a challenge isn't a problem. A challenge is just a challenge. There's not this idea of good and bad in how I envision parenting and education. So it's not just about parenting. I'd love for this to reach the education system. And I think the world's just getting ready, because so many parents have now seen their kids learning online, and they've seen how I had one mum email me and say, no wonder my kids don't want to do the worksheets. They're boring, right? And it's true. Yes, there is place for that. But to fill 6 or 8 hours of the day with the boring stuff, I mean, we wouldn't want to do it. Why are we asking our kids to do it?
Yeah. And I heard you just say that you're hoping that this is going to reach the education system, and I also like to hold on to that thought, but to be honest, I really don't, because the reason I don't believe that the things that we're teaching our parents to really take on board about sowing those seeds of success, that creating the vision for it and moving in that direction, is because the school education system is not designed for that. That's not what it was created for, and we're trying to put things into an education system that's not been designed. We have to recognize what that education system was designed for and what its purpose is, and creating abundant, successful, naturally thriving, doing their things, using their mind, creative, using their intuitive mind, just create. That's not what they want to do. That's not what the education system's about. The education system's about is creating soldiers, followers, people that can go into the factories, the traditional type things, and just be the robots of society to keep certain things ticking over. But it was never been designed. I hate to say that, but this is my true belief in that sense, is that I don't think it's ever been designed to create the type of children that we want to bring into, that we want thriving and stuff. And so this is why I think it's important for us as parents to recognize that and do what we need to do to create that. I think we have to lead the charge on it. It's like, I don't think we're ever going to get an establishment, a government establishment, to take on these type of things. You might get it in bits and pieces. Like I said, I was in school and I managed to get a few bits into my class and the thing and what have you, and I managed to do certain elements, and I've managed to embed some mindfulness into some schools and things. But these is like surface level, should I say, surface level stuff. They're not going into the deeps and nitty gritties of it, because it's all about academics, league tables, hitting that certain thing. It's not about the holistic child. It's not about the wholeness of your child, the education system. It's not about their social or emotional health. It's not about their creativity. Do you see what I mean? We have to do that.
It's true. It is true. And I know many teachers, and they all say the same thing. They know how they could be doing it, but within the system, they're not able to.
However, that's right. You're banging your head against a brick wall. So it can feel like that. Do you know what I mean? However.
So yes, that is what I hear from teachers. However, communication. So when they used to send pigeons with the letters attached to them, right? That wasn't designed for the purpose that we use communication for now. The original telephone wasn't designed for the purpose that we use telephones for now. So it doesn't mean it can't shift. So yes, it was designed for a particular purpose. However, I feel that the way the world has gone is really supportive right now of that change happening. You know why? Because it's what the world needs, right?
Yeah.
So the education system was designed to fill a certain need. That need is no longer there. And yes, some governments might still be stuck in that way of thinking because it's a bit unsafe to have a whole heap of free thinkers in a country. However, it can also be amazing to have a whole heap of free thinkers in a country.
I think it would be amazing. That's the thing that I'm talking about, transforming a generation. Can you imagine what this world would be like if parents and children stepped into their magnificence in what it is that they could create, understanding themselves as who they are and what it is that they want to do? That learning has been, like you said, effortless, growing, and they're, you know, just reaching and doing all of the things that they set their mind to do because they now know that they can and believe they can, and the parents can do it, believe it too. So for me, that is an awesome vision. I love, you know, that's what keeps me moving, keeps me wanting to connect with all of the other parents and all the other experts and share this information and get it out to them so that our parents and children, you know, start doing these things and living these lives, moving in this way kind of thing. And I know, as you say, things are changing, and we're in a time now, especially what we're going through, we're in a time now where we're recognizing all of these things. But at the same time, I'm still a little pessimistic in that element, because at the same time, education over the last, everything in this world has changed. However, education in the last 100 years hasn't changed. The classroom is exactly the same, the way people teach, you know. So when you look at the movements of what's gone on in the world and the progression that's happened and the different things, so like you're saying about the carrier pigeon and the telephones and all of that, they've all developed and moved on in the last 100 years. They've made leaps and bounds. Cars, the way that we transport, the way that we move, leaps and bounds. Whereas the education system is exactly the same. In the last 100 years, you know, it's barely moved. Do you know what I mean?
We think of change as a linear process, right? But it's not. And same with learning.
Yeah.
You know, this is one of the things that I teach, is that learning is not a linear process. Of
course it's not.
It's like this. So change isn't a linear process either. So if the education system has been like this for 100 years, guess what?
This is coming. It's time for that. It has to come somewhere, doesn't it? It has to come somewhere. Yeah.
And really,
and I'm hoping
it's all about acting from the vision and not the fear. It's all about going, okay, what's the vision rather than what are we fearing, right?
Yeah.
And really, all that parents and educators need to do is set those foundations for kids to grow from. And I think once that becomes, there are schools in Australia that are now changing the way that they're doing. So they're now doing longitudinal learning, where children with the same interests in all age groups are learning together. And they're actually designing schools that are very interactive, that have different spaces that kids can sit on. Kids are allowed to move while they're learning. They're allowed to sit on physio balls. They have different surfaces they can walk on and experience. So it is
there's elements
experimentally.
There are elements, and as you say, you know, it just takes more and more of us to do it, you know, for more and more of us to bring it into the school systems, more and more of us educators that are in there speaking up and say, this is what we want to do, this is what, and you know, kind of more and more, and you'll get, because like you said, there are a few that are sporadic around there, but I would that are doing making some changes and attempting to bring these new ways into the education that we know would work and stuff. So, you know, we'll keep pushing forward in that. And I would like in my lifetime to see quite a massive change in the educational system, but I will take what is happening, you know. But I do feel, like I say, I think it's it's for us as parents to lead the charge on that and begin this process at home with our children and that kind of thing. So yeah, we can't wait on establishments to do it for us. I think we need
to. I see on your banner, transforming a generation. So it's that generation that will then make the next changes.
Absolutely.
Who knows? And it doesn't matter, because it does begin in the home. The children spend the first years of their life at home, and that is when all the foundations ideally are set. It doesn't mean you can't fill them in later, but as parents, we do have that time where we're giving them those foundations, the foundations of the things that they need to know, the things that they need to have developed for everything else to grow from. And if we can provide them with that, then yes, they might go through school reluctantly, or they might go through school with energy. It doesn't matter, because after 12 years or so, they're out of school, and then that's when their life really begins, right? So it's about setting the foundation that allows them to then grow from that once they get to young adulthood and that maturity, and they're breaking away from parents, from schools, from teachers. That's what we're really wanting to create, isn't it? A generation that can think for themselves and think creatively.
Think creatively.
In a way that's and also learn. So I don't discount. Sometimes people think that I'm all about just free flow and let the kids, hippie mung beans, let them do whatever they want, and that I promote, that learning maths and reading and writing and spelling isn't important. It's not true. It is important. But the thing is that when you set the foundations, all those things come easily, just like reading did to me. They can get that aha moment. So if you've got the foundations, then through the kids observing and looking at things from different directions, they suddenly, that pathway in the brain unlocks, and all the networks connect, and they go, aha, I've got it. And then they never forget it, rather than the other type of learning where they're just repeating a task, but of course they don't remember it a week later because they weren't actually focused on the task. They were focused on getting the task over and done with, right?
Yeah, that's what I call surface level learning, where it's just enough to be able to regurgitate and move on. But
and then they can't use that skill anywhere else. Right?
That's it. It's not taken on board. It's forgotten about. It's to get that task done, regurgitate at that particular point, move on and forgotten about. And when you think, I think there'll be so many adults that tell you the things that they learned in school that they can't even remember, they've never used in life, and doesn't, you know what I mean? It's like, what's that kind of thing, so it's nice when you're able to get that learning in what I would call a cellular level, where they really do take it on board and they really embody what it is, and then run with it, move it, take it to the next level of what it is that where they're going with that learning. I think that is an awesome thing to witness and experience, so that's real deep level learning, and I love that.
And for that you need focused attention, and focused attention only comes when the motivation is intrinsic and there's a level of control. Okay, that's Norman Doidge talking about how the brain works. So you can't get that type of learning if you don't have an element of control in that learning. Otherwise you're just navigating a stressed teacher or a stressed parent. So you're learning that, but you're not learning the material.
That's so good. That's a really good, that's a tweetable moment, as Oprah would say, navigating a stressed parent or a stressed teacher, and not actually learning for yourself at a level for yourself. I think that is amazing.
Because they're always learning. It's just they're just not always learning what we think they're learning.
I actually
that's right. A teacher say a great quote, and she said she was a teacher that was working in one of these new schools, the new style schools where they're doing this longitudinal thing, and she was maybe 60, so she's been teaching for a long time. And she said, when our school changed to this model, at first I thought, oh my goodness, I don't even know what they're learning anymore. And then I realized, this is the teacher speaking, and then I realized that I didn't know what they were learning before. I knew what I was teaching, but I didn't know what they were learning, right? So it's about that. Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true, because you do know what you're teaching. But how do you fully evaluate what they're learning? Because right, they're learning, they've picked up the things that you're teaching, but there's so much more that they're learning in that. So how do you fully pull that out and get an understanding of what it is that they're learning? How do you do
By
that?
observing them. By observing them. That was one of the things when I first started homeschooling. And I was quite structured in my homeschooling to begin with. That I felt that there were certain things I needed to do. And literally 6 months down the track, we were having a conversation with my sons. And they were 8 and 10 years old at this time, right? And they knew all this stuff. So I realized, wow, they've learned so much in the last 6 months, and none of it is the stuff that I was teaching them. It was that aha moment for me, going, well, I might as well just let them learn. Yeah.
That's funny. That is funny. That is funny, but it's so true, It's like, wow, they just come out with some things and you think, well, where did you learn that from? Where did that come from? Where did you pick that up? It's like, oh, I didn't tell you that. No, I didn't show you that. I didn't teach you that. It's like, but that just shows you how they just pull in everything from everywhere that you're not even aware of, that they're picking up or that they're pulling it in from. So, they are such open vessels for learning, and when they're switched on and in tune to and have that desire to learn, wow, that curiosity takes them everywhere, and it's amazing to watch, to see them just grow. And you see when their eyes light up, their whole disposition and body changes when they're really engaged in what it is that they're doing and learning. And I think that's a beautiful thing to witness. And that could be the teacher educator in me, the parent in me, but the teacher educator parent. But I do think it is a beautiful thing to witness. I love it. And I love it. I really just love it.
And it's the thing to look out for. It's the thing to observe. But another thing I wanted to add to that, it doesn't mean that those other things don't come in. Because what I saw in one of my sons, when he was at school, maths wasn't his strong point, and he didn't learn to read fluently till he was about 11 or 12, right? He just wasn't the schooly kind of kid. So he'd rather be outside playing, experimenting with things, building clocks, he a million ideas an hour, all of that kind of stuff. He was that kind of kid. Now he's not quite 17. He turns 17 in a week. He started a business 2 years ago, right? And he's doing spreadsheets and working out his costings, and he's doing Gantt charts and doing project management, right? And one time I walked into his room and I said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I just designed a spreadsheets for my profit and loss. And I looked at this guy and I went, who are you? Are you the same kid that didn't want to do maths because it's not his thing, right? So my point is that it doesn't mean that they're not picking up the importance of those things. So even though they might resist the worksheets, it's still important to bring that into life. It's still important to expose them to everything, because when they need it, they'll take it on. And if we've put the foundations in so that their brain is open, so all the networks are hungry for whatever it is that they want to learn, when they need it, they're going to pick it up like that. So we don't need to teach them how to do a spreadsheet in 5th grade or 10th grade. We just need to expose them to it and go, this is available, so that if you ever want it in the future, it's there. And they pick it up like that, because it's serving a purpose for him now, right? It's his goal. It's not my goal, not the teacher's goal. And that's an important thing to remember. Let go of the fear that they'll fail because they don't know how to do maths when they're 10, or they don't know how to read when they're 12. They won't fail. When they need it, they'll pick it up. He's finished he's just finished a course that normally it's 18 years of age, minimum age, and he's just finished it at 16. heaps of reading. He's learned to be a personal trainer, learning about the body and anatomy. So because it served his purpose, he suddenly took up reading, right?
Yeah.
And he still says that he's not a reader, but when it serves their purpose, they will come into it. So my big message to parents is just let go of the fear. Just have fun with your kids. Grow them into the amazing human beings that they are, and allow them to develop those brain connections so that their brain lights up every time they see something that excites them. And just through that, they will thrive. There's no other way. It's the law of nature. It's a universal law, right?
Yeah, that's wonderful. So just repeat that for parents again to understand this universal law. This is the one thing that you could do. Allow them to say what you just said. Repeat what you said.
Allow them to develop the neural networks. Okay, so the way the brain works is that it connects information. So the more angles we can look at information from, so the same piece of, let's say you're looking at a rock, so you could be looking at the color of a rock, the shape of a rock. Is it triangular? Is it circular? What other rocks is it the same as? You could be talking about the geology, where it came from, the volcano. Then you might talk about the cultures that lived here or the animals that lived here when that volcano exploded. So this one object of a stone, all of a sudden there's a whole heap of neural networks, a whole heap of networks in the brain that are connected to this one piece of information. So what parents can do is allow kids to explore things from all different angles, because that means that when they then need something, lots of brain networks light up and they know how to get the information. And also the brain is open for learning, or the chemicals are juicy, because learning is a chemical process. All the chemicals are there ready to go. So that's what it's about. And fun. So excitement, the chemicals that get released during excitement, it reinforces learning, while stress chemicals suppress learning. So immediately, if learning is done in a stressed environment, it's working against them. Learning done in a fun way, any type of game, is promoting their future and their thriving.
And you see, and what you just explained there also is a transferable skill, in that when they meet obstacles and challenges, they're able to look at that challenge from many different perspectives, many obstacles. They're able to overcome or find different ways around it. That ability to look at one object from the different angles and the different perspectives is transferable into looking at problems or obstacles and things, to be able to look all around, above and below, and sort of things, and find their way through. It's an amazing skill. So just by you allowing your child to explore like that, it gives them so much skills that can be applied in so many ways in the variety of their life. And I think that is just awesome. That is awesome. That is awesome. So time is clicking on, and I didn't even get to speak to you. There's so much I could talk to you about more and more. So because you just finished your Unleash program, which you've just been celebrating, doing your 4 weeks. So can you just give us a little roundup of that? Because I don't want this to finish without me speaking about that. I've been looking forward to hearing about this. So please do tell me.
I pretty much have.
Yes, so it's all combined in the program, isn't it? Yes.
So my introductory my masterclass is called Thrive, raising kids to thrive no matter what life brings. And it's followed by Unleash, which I just did the 4-week program. I think it's about to turn into a 6-week, because we're all missing each other already. And it's all about that, setting the foundations. So what are the foundations, and how do we put them into place with our kids? Because there's only really 5 things that they ever need to learn in life. So it's going through that. And I mentioned some of them already, not in detail, because we don't have 4 weeks, or do we?
No.
But that's what it is. So I share with parents, we go through a 4-week process of learning about that and experiencing what it's like to bring those foundations into our children's lives with ease, with fun, with play, you know, so that,
and I think that's
so
the
the
key,
parents
isn't it?
thrive and the kids thrive. Yeah,
that's the key, with ease, with fun. That's what life is supposed to be, with ease and fun, you know, experiencing it in such joyous ways, you know. So that is awesome. That's awesome. And that program just sounds amazing. And I think parents, as once they've listening to this, it may not be so surprised when you say that there's only 5 things that we need to really embed in our children, having heard you throughout this. But I'm sure that, you know, once they really understand those 5 things, they go, oh, I see what you mean. I can see how that works out, as I've learned so much from you previously where I've attended some of your sessions and things, and there's many little nuggets that I think, oh yeah, it works with what I'm saying, but you've just phrased it in a different way and stuff. And I think that is awesome. So parents, if there's parents that want to reach out to you to kind of like find out more about the work that you're doing and so forth, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, 2 obvious ways. One, through Facebook, BeAta Tina Fuller, or themotherswisdom.com. Yeah. Themotherswisdom.com. You can book a clarity call. You can fill out a contact form. So however you want to find me, it's really easy to find people these days, isn't it?
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah. So themotherswisdom.com or BeAta Tina Fuller on Facebook. I'm there, I'm available. And I want this to go out to everybody, as you do, right?
Yes,
so anyone who's a parent or who wants to work in this field and collaborate. Yeah, I love to connect with people.
Yeah, because I think the more people working in this way, the more people sowing seeds and wanting to transform parents and children, you know, the more our society, our world, our life will transform as well. And I think about this generation is what's coming up to take over from us as we're going on, as our, you know, older ones are disappearing. So we're sowing those seeds to create the world that we want to live in, kind of thing. So I think it's important that we do that. So, and you are doing amazing work with the parents and families that you are currently working with, and those that are going to come to you even more. So thank you for your time, your energy.
And thank you, Melanie, and you're doing amazing work too. I really appreciate you, and I've loved meeting you. I've loved working with you. It's been such a journey, and all the other wonderful people that we've connected with. So great. Thank you so much. And we might get our co-host to end the meeting, because we have a history of tech adventures on these calls. This one waited until the last moment.
Look, I think we got
to the end.
We got to the end. I'm still streaming, so we're still here. We froze for a moment, and it was right at the very end it started to do that, but I'm back and we're still live. So I don't know what happened. Zoom kind of went and came back again. Are you still with me? Yes, you're smiling the eye, because that's why I went, oh yeah, look,
it's a law of nature, right? We have a history of tech adventures on these calls, so we couldn't have one without it.
Amazing.
Following universal laws.
Yes, one of those universal laws. So let me just wrap this up while I'm still here before it says time to go again. So I was just thanking you, Tina, BeAta, for all of the wonderful work that you've been doing. And, you know, I always say, as parents, you know, we are our children's first and continuous teachers, and we must recognize the impact that we have on our children's beliefs about themselves, about others, and about the world around them, you know. And you and the work that you're doing is really making parents aware of this, you know, and allowing us to sow some positive seeds into our children in the way that we want them to grow and thrive, you know. So let's be positive. Let's show our children how to be the best version of themselves by us as well being the best version of us. So Vision in Parenting is here to help and support you to do that, you know. So do watch the episode, follow along. There's so much information. Go back and watch again. There's lots of little nuggets in there that you can take out and start implementing for yourself and within your families. And again, you can always reach out to myself or to BeAta or to anyone else that has appeared on this Visionary Parenting show, because they are more than happy to support you in your journey of parenting and parenting made easy. So let me wrap this up by once again saying thank you, BeAta, for all of your time, your energy, and the work that you do. And I'm going to sign this off before it signs off for me. So thank you. Blessings.
Yes, let's have a planned sign off. Thank you, Melanie. And thank you for all you do. You're doing amazing work, and I've loved working with you. Thank you so much.
And long may it continue, because, you know, you are just a blessing. So thank you.
Take care.
Right. Take care.
See you soon.
Let me switch this off of Facebook.